All right.
Hi,
Welcome.
thank you.
We are here at another episode of the Brothers in Law podcast.
hmm
I have an exciting guest with me here today. Before we get into your story, I just want to introduce and welcome people who are tuning in for the very first time. For those who have been following us for a while, you know I have a co-host, Conrad, who is my fellow brother, my brother-in-law, my homie. He's not here today because he's currently, litigating a trial. His first felony trial is happening really as we speak. He is preparing his closing argument, and this his trial would likely come to an end tomorrow or the next couple of days. So he's occupied with the
Okay,
trial.
okay.
And for those who are tuning in for the very first time, I want to welcome you to the Brothers in Law podcast. Here we discuss all things as it relates to criminal law and the law in general. Some of our episodes are about knowing your rights. Some episodes are about what's going on in policy. We have a wide variety of what we talk about here at the Brothers in Law podcast, and you are about to introduce, another section about what we talk about here at the Brothers in Law podcast. So, Paulina,
Yes.
can you just introduce yourself briefly? Let us know, who you are, where you from,
hmm
what do you do,
hmm
who are you, Paulina?
Okay. My name is Paulina Bryan, and I'm from Orange, New Jersey.
Okay,
I'm a CEO and founder of Live Lawyer app.
okay,
And for you guys to know, Live Lawyer app is an app
uh huh,
where if the police stop you, you push my app. A lawyer will come on via a Skype like or FaceTime like feature,
uh huh.
and you'll get represented immediately.
Wow.
And then it will also ping your selected contacts,
Okay,
letting them know where you're located and that you've been stopped.
uh huh.
And then my last phase is going to be voice activation.
Okay,
Because what if the police tell you can't touch your phone? You
right,
say Live Lawyer app,
right.
automatically pops on, and everything gets saved to the cloud.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to dive. We're gonna dive into that in a
Okay.
second. I want to just highlight how we met and how I'm happy that we met.
Yes.
So we met at my launch event for
Right.
my organization for the family,
Right.
and you found out about it on Instagram,
Instagram.
and you came, you show support, you show love,
Right.
and it was there where I got to learn your story. I got to learn, about your app,
hmm
and I was still in the process of like really beginning the podcast and beginning
Right.
organization, but I knew at that point, like
hmm
you are someone who I wanted to collaborate with,
Well, thank you.
someone who I believe your story deserves and should be known and
Thank
shared.
you. Thank you.
And when your app becomes live, I know your app has the power to really change and save many lives.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And that's what I want to do. Like even if I say we can save like at least one person.
Right.
And I don't know if I told you the story of how I came up with this
No,
idea.
tell me about it.
My son Jordan had purchased a new car and he kept calling me and kept getting stopped by the police. And he would call me all the time, like, Ma, the cops keep stopping me. I don't know what to say. And I replied just out of frustration, too
Uh-huh.
bad you can't Skype a lawyer. And I was
Mm,
like, well, maybe you can Skype a lawyer. So I started the process, went to my patent attorney and started, getting the process together for Live Lawyer app. So that's how I came up with the idea.
okay. And what is the status of the app right now?
The status of the app, we're in build stage. We're trying to get our MVP together so we can actually come out with the app.
Okay.
Right now, it's just trying to get something to actually show because I have the idea what I need. I'm going to be working with a few people over in Jersey from the tech world
Okay.
to actually get the app together so we can get it out to the folks.
Got you. Um, how can people support you and your app right now?
Well, for right now, what I need is it's going to be funding.
Hmm.
I'm going to need because I do have to pay the app people and people to help me manage the process.
Hmm.
So right now, what I need from them, if they can go to www.livelawyer.app.com
Okay.
and they can enter their email address,
Okay.
I can get the numbers of people who are interested, and I can start to get investors interested in helping me with my app.
Okay. Got you. So, you mentioned about your son and how
hmm
the idea of the app came to be.
hmm
Can you tell us a little bit more about your son, about his story, and
Yes.
about why he is such a motivation for you to carry on and make this actually come to fruition?
Yes. So my son Jordan Bryan, we came up with this. I came up with the idea in 2014,
Hmm.
But unfortunately, in 2016, my son was murdered.
I'm sorry.
He was, it was a normal day.
Mm-hmm.
We were actually grilling out, my husband and I and the family.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, somebody was mistaken identity.
Mm-hmm.
They came when he was driving his car and they shot him a half a block from my house. And I heard his friend yell his name, scream his name, Jordan. So, if of course, you hear that blood curdling
Right.
call, yelling. And then you hear it wasn't pop, pop, pop.
Right.
It was boom, 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 like loud gunshots. So
Right.
my husband and I we saw his car, we start running.
Mm-hmm.
We get up to his car. I didn't see him in the car. I said, well, maybe he got away.
Mm-hmm.
But then my husband turned to the left. He was laying in the driveway.
My goodness.
So as I see my son there, I'm turning him over and the police come and they're like, move out the way. We don't know. I'm like, this is my child. I don't care anything about a gunman or anything.
Right.
So I saw him struggling to take a breath. So the officer is giving him chest compressions
Mm-hmm.
and I'm blowing in his mouth. But I felt his last breath come from him and come into my body. So it's like he's still here. I don't know if people can understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Like his whole spirit left his body and came back to my body. So as a mother of a murdered child, I think if he had to be murdered, that was the best way for him to be murdered because I was there when he was born.
Right.
And I was there when he died. I saw him
Right.
take his first breath and I felt him take his last breath.
Wow. How old was he?
He was 23 at the time. He'd have been 32 today, but he was 23 at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know no mother like imagines what it's like for their son's life to be taken.
Yes.
But I like that you're able to find consolation in the fact that you were there.
Yes.
You got to be there in his last moments.
Yes.
I'm sure he felt your presence and felt your
Yes.
comfort.
Yes, he did.
In all the ways that this could have happened, I know you're happy that you were there.
I was just so happy because I think about some other moms, because I do have another podcast that I have. It's called Through Her Eyes, where I tell my story, and I have 4 other mommies tell their story along with me.
Mm-hmm.
And just to hear those mothers' stories, it's heart wrenching.
Right.
I mean, I had one mommy who her son was her only living relative.
Mm.
So, and I used to go to court with her because that was her only living relative.
Right.
Then I had another mommy who had 3 sons murdered. So
Right.
how do you deal with 3 sons being murdered? So, yeah, so I take some type of refuge that I was there in my son's last moments. I
Right.
got to see him.
Right.
It was just like he took his, I felt I don't know if anybody knows what a last breath is, but it's like a huge gush.
Yeah.
And it just calmed me.
Wow.
So I feel like he's still here. So that's why I'm able to tell his story without
Yeah.
crying and all this, because I feel like he never left me.
Right.
Like he came back to me, I should say.
And you mentioned I didn't even know that you have your own podcast where
I had it was just one episode of
episode.
podcast with ABF Creative.
wow.
And they asked me to do, I was actually their first podcast. When he heard my story, he wanted to just come together with Anthony Frazier, wanted us to come together and find mommies and
Right.
do it. And I did that one podcast. So
Wow. And
yeah.
it sounds like are you connected to a community of mothers who have had their
Yes.
children murdered?
Yes, I'm connected to the community, my local community, and
Mhm.
I actually, when I was down in Georgia, I met some other ladies from the Washington D.C. area.
Uh-huh.
We're going to meet them in October, like next month.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have lunch with those ladies, so it's like a different spread. And I also met some ladies up in Connecticut too, who had the same. Their sons were murdered, so it's a community that I'm like gradually growing,
Mhm.
getting to become a part of. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Wow. I just have so many reactions. I guess the first reaction is like I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can only I don't have children.
Right.
But I am close with my mom.
Right.
And I know how she would be impacted if I were to
Mm-hmm.
be killed.
Right.
And when I first met you, and you don't lead with your story, so I see a happy, I see a loving,
Yeah.
I see just I see you,
Right.
and I don't know what you've been through, I don't know what you're carrying,
Right.
and I can imagine you've had many years to grieve, you've had many years to process,
Right.
but you just don't carry it. You don't. It's hard for me to
And
look at you and see your trauma.
like I said, like when he took that, I could not cry. It's like I feel this child with me.
Yeah.
It's like, I have my moments like, oh, I miss my child,
Yeah.
but it's not like a breakdown cry.
Yeah.
I just think that's it sounds weird, but if he had to go,
Right.
I'm glad he went that way because I don't have to question where
Yeah.
he was, what he looked like,
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah.
I know what happened to my child when he
Yeah.
died. I was there.
Are you a person of faith?
I'm a person of faith. I believe
Yeah.
there's a higher being.
Right. I'm only asking because
Yeah.
the kind of peace you have
Mhm.
sounds like someone who has that kind of like discomfort.
Right, right. I do, and it's so we. I'm telling you that gust of breath really saved me because even going through the trial, just
Right.
going through the trial, I had the mom of the person who killed my son. She comes into court and says,
Wait, let's pause because I wanted to get there
"Okay,
because
okay,
one of
yeah,
my questions was going to be, did they
okay,
find the person who killed your son?
right, yes,
So walk me through what happened after they investigated and they found the person who killed your son.
right,
What happened?
okay." So the day that it happened, they found the one kid on the train tracks, and they arrested him that day.
Okay.
And then they found another kid came in afterward, and they arrested him a few weeks later.
Okay.
So the kid they found on the train tracks, our town that I live in is 2.2 miles.
Mm-hmm.
So it's small. That kid actually played football with my other son. My other son was the captain of the football team.
Younger or older?
Younger.
Uh-huh.
And he actually played on the team.
Wow.
So it was weird, but the next day I had to go to court because, they're going to arraign him and,
Mm-hmm.
tell him what his charges are. And I get there and I'm just sitting there. My thought is, no one wants to be a mother of a murdered child or a murderer.
My goodness.
Okay.
Yeah.
But when I got there and I see his mom, I could tell she was young when she had him.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Oh, my son can't wait to get his teardrop." So, like I said, it's a lot of peace in me because I'm like thinking to myself, that made me change a whole different thing. Because when I went to court, I was ready to say, okay, I know you couldn't have want your son to be a murderer. You couldn't
Right.
have.
Right.
Right. And it's like I didn't want my son. I was ready to be that peaceful person to like accept
Right.
what happened and accept that your child did it and still try to work with you.
Right.
But that just changed my whole mind about about the court system and some people. That just took me aback. So,
Right.
and then a few weeks later, the other person came in and he was arrested and he was charged. He got 5 years. He's out already.
Wow.
And the other one got 15 years. But they both got it in a juvenile facility, which I didn't understand because they both were adults, 18 and 23, when you killed my child. So I don't know the backstory. I don't know how they worked out the deal
Right.
or any of that stuff.
Right.
So it was just like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
And then he wanted to get out early, on parole, probation, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to go to the state and say, no, he only had to spend another 6 months. Let him spend 6 months. So
Yeah.
had to do that. And then, not to mention that, like I said, my town is 2.2 miles.
Right.
So the one that received the 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
I saw his sister in the store. And she came to my face. And she was like, doing this to my face. And I'm saying to myself, Lord, what lesson is it that I'm going to learn from this today?
Right.
Because she was pregnant and she had a baby with her.
Wow.
Because if I was that type of rage,
Right.
I just
Yeah.
walked away. I just walked away because I'm thinking like something's really wrong with her.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to throw away my life for this.
Right.
So it's been a little bit stressful, but I've learned, and I'm telling you, that breath of air
Mm-hmm. Wow.
really calms me.
Well, I'm curious. I know here, I work in the Bronx,
Uh-huh.
and when a DA, when a prosecutor is trying to figure out what's going to happen with a case,
Right.
they often involve the family of the person who
Right.
has been murdered, has been hurt, has been harmed, and they involve that person a lot in the process to determine whether or not what should happen with the case. How many years should they get? Should they
Right.
get jail at all? Were you included closely by the prosecutor in that case?
So, okay, here's the prosecution portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
The gun they said that killed my child was some type of gun from the military that shouldn't even been out on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it got on the streets, but whatever. They
Mm-hmm.
said the serial number was raced off, and if they had to go and do more investigation or whatever, he might get off because they couldn't prove that gun shot my son. I don't understand it, but that's what I was told.
Uh-huh.
So, and then they came back and they told me what years they were going to, give them.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like I really had a choice. I was given a choice to say, no, they should get more time. This is what I don't know how they got it.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting 5 years and he's getting 15 years. That's just something I had to swallow.
Wow. You mentioned how like no mother, expects to be the murderer of somebody
Right.
who was a murderer.
Right.
You may notice about me, but I'm also a poet,
Yes.
and there's a famous poet who I'm a fan of. Her name is Jasmine Mans, and
Mm-hmm.
she has this poem where she references that exact dichotomy. How
Right.
like when you see a grieving mother,
Right.
it's hard to tell the difference between the mother of the murdered and the
Right.
mother of the murderer,
Right.
and like they often grieve the same,
Right.
and no one ever understands that the no one plans to be
Right.
no one gives sympathy at all. No one
Right.
expects to feel bad for the
Right.
mother of the person who was the
Right.
actual murderer.
Right.
So the fact that you have that grace,
Right.
you don't understand how in awe I am and surprised by your reaction. Like anybody else who I can imagine who lost someone due to a
Right.
murder,
Right.
yet alone that person to be your son or your
Right.
daughter,
Right.
I would imagine to hear anger in your voice. I
Right.
would imagine to hear like I hate that person.
Right.
I hate how anybody can support that person. I hate the fact that they only got 15 years. Like
Right.
that would be the energy that I would expect from someone who has been through your trauma, and the fact that you are walking with so much grace and peace is just mind boggling.
Yeah, I'm telling you that it was something about that last breath.
Yeah,
It was something about it. When I tell you, it took over my body.
yeah,
I had shivers, everything. I could not cry. I could not do anything. Like I just couldn't cry. I just had
yeah.
this humble, like this peacefulness over me.
Peace.
I can't explain it,
Yeah,
and I try to tell people about it, but they don't understand.
right,
And I think too, with me having that type of attitude,
right,
my cousins, my husband, my
right,
kids, everybody was.
right.
It wasn't. It was just calm. I think if I would have overreacted or acted differently,
Mm-hmm.
it the whole scenario could have changed. It could have been a wild,
Yeah,
crazy thing, but it was just something just holds me. Like
right,
that spirit just holds me.
right. There is something that's come to my mind as we speak, and I didn't intend to have this
Right.
turn of conversation, but something we speak a lot about in like prison reform conversations
Mm-hmm.
is this concept of restorative justice,
Right.
and how instead of incarceration we should entertain a different
Mm-hmm.
form of justice.
Right.
And restorative justice embraces this idea
Mhm.
of victims of crimes
Right.
being confronted by the perpetrator of crime,
Mm-hmm.
and to see if those kinds of conversation between the two
Mm-hmm.
could be more impactful and more beneficial
Right.
than incarceration.
Right.
The critique is often, yeah, that might work for someone who has like stolen something from somebody,
Right.
or someone who has assaulted somebody,
Mm-hmm.
but for serious crimes like rape or like murder,
Mm-hmm.
people think it's a far-fetched idea to expect a rapist to sit
Right.
down with the person that they raped
Right.
and have a conversation,
Right.
yet alone someone who is the murderer to sit down with the family of the person that they murdered
Right.
and have the conversation.
Right.
What do you think about that? Is the first question, and the second is, if the person who murdered your son was right next to you, what would you say to them? Like, what would your conversation be with either one of those two?
First of all, I think with my situation is different because of how that breath came in me.
Yeah,
It could, like they said, it could work, but it. I guess I really. What do I want to say? I really can't answer that without the breath
mm-hmm.
because I had the breath.
Right,
You understand what I'm saying? And if they would sit, I saw the person after 5 years. I saw him walking down the street. So
wow,
you understand what I'm saying? So and it did not bother. It didn't bother me because
right.
I have that peace.
If you heard that one of them wanted to sit down and apologize and talk to you, would you be open to that kind of conversation?
I would be open to it. I don't know if my husband would be open to it, but I would be open to it because I want to ask the question, why? What what was in your mind at that time? And I give you just a quick other story. When the sister, I met her in the store and she was doing all that.
Mm-hmm.
The next day I had somebody call me from South Jersey and he wanted to get a notary.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, I'm coming to East Orange, I'm gonna get a notary, da, da, da. And I was telling him the story how my son was murdered. So
Mm-hmm.
when he got on the phone, he was like, I have to tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
I murdered somebody when I was 18. The kid was 18, and I got 15 years. The day after the sister, because I said, God, let me know the lesson.
Right,
He was like, and I got 15 years.
right,
And I'm like, oh my God, I invited the murderer to the house
right.
to come get the notary done. So he came, and I asked him, I said, why did you? He was like, I don't know what I was thinking. He said, I honestly don't know what I was thinking. I was 18 years old.
Yeah.
He was like, I had this thing, like I had to have this bravado
Yeah.
about me. He said, then I went to jail. I'm acting crazy in jail.
Right.
He actually studied law, and Columbia came in. He can actually become an attorney,
Wow.
but he said he didn't want to do that because attorneys have certain rules they have to follow.
Uh-huh.
If he's on this side of the law, he
Right.
can actually talk differently
Right.
than that person. But that was the day after. So you see, that's the lesson
Right.
that I had to learn. Like,
Right.
some people can be redeemed, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But it wasn't my person that he killed.
Right.
But still, it was like he was 18, he got 15 years, and
Right.
the person who killed my son was 18 and got 15 years. So
Right.
it was like a
Right.
correlation, and it happened the day after.
Right. You spoke with someone who has actually gone through the redemption process
Right.
and has the perspective to be like, I don't know what I was thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, one thing I tell people often is that most people who commit crimes when they're young and,
Right.
and dumb.
Right.
And most people grow out of that behavior.
Right.
Most people, it just takes life.
Mm-hmm.
It takes years, and
Right.
it takes growth and maturity.
Right.
So, like, yeah, I believe that most, if not all,
Mm-hmm.
people who engage in crime
Mhm.
are redeemable.
Right.
Some people it takes 5 years.
Right.
Some it takes longer.
Right.
But I believe, I'm a man of faith, and I
Right.
believe that God has the ability to
Right.
transform anybody,
Right.
no matter what they've been through, no matter
Right.
what they've done.
Right. Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your app.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I want to say about you is I am very new to having my own organization.
Right.
But one thing I feel I can learn from you
Right.
is you are, I believe, a master marketer.
Uh-huh.
I've followed you on Instagram.
Right.
I've seen how well you
Uh-huh.
talk about your app,
Uh-huh.
how condensed it is. Everyone should have like an elevator pitch where
Right.
if you ask you about your organization, you
Mhm.
should be able to communicate it briefly
Right.
and sufficiently,
Right.
and you do that extremely well.
Thank you.
You have it marketed on your shirt right now.
Yes.
Your marketing is brilliant.
Thank you.
And a lesson I'm learning is you're marketing it right now before it's even live.
Right.
That way, by the time it comes live, you would have shared and spread the information about your app so well to
Right.
it'll be easier for people to hop on board and support it. So
Right.
I've just learned so much, and I'm taking notes as I watch you
I
do what you
appreciate it.
do. So yeah, I want to conceptualize or contextualize how this app actually would work. I know you breezed through it, but
Uh-huh.
I think it's important for the audience that we kind of talk it through.
Right.
So let's say your app is fully in effect, fully
Mhm.
working,
Mhm.
and I'm driving my car,
Mhm.
and a cop pulls me over.
Right.
How would the app come into play if that were to happen?
Okay. So you would activate my app, right? If you
Okay.
had a chance to activate it.
And you would say do voice activation.
You could do voice activation or you could push it.
Okay.
So what happens is once you do that, a lawyer pops up via video chat like feature.
Mm-hmm.
How may I represent you?
So, for instance, most people have their phone probably on the side console.
Right.
So I get pulled over.
Right.
Most times, police officers give you like about 30 seconds before they get to your door, so you
Right.
can quickly get your phone,
Yeah.
put your phone on your lap or next
Right.
door,
Right.
activate your app,
Right.
and you can have a lawyer live
Right.
on Skype
Right.
right there and then
Right.
as a police officer comes, knocks
Right.
on your door.
Right. Right. So that way, and you can, the lawyer's listening to the conversation,
Right.
and he's going to represent you,
Right.
and there you have it. Like, because most people don't know their rights.
Right.
So I know if somebody pulled me over, I don't know anything either.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so that's the idea I have. Like, the lawyer's right there,
Mhm.
and everything is being saved to the cloud, for future use.
Right.
And just to let your family know, that you've been stopped and where you're located. Because a lot
Right.
of times your family don't know that you're stopped and where you're located.
Right.
So, like Sandra Bland,
Right.
they didn't know where she were,
Yeah.
where she was located. So,
Right.
just something just to, make sure you locate your family and make sure that, you're being represented.
Right. I believe it's so powerful because I've seen it firsthand.
Mhm.
Just the different ways a police officer would treat someone
Right.
when a lawyer is there
Right.
versus when the lawyer is not there.
Right.
Based on how they talk to them, what they
Right.
ask them to do, they just wouldn't try to get away with certain things when a lawyer is actually
Right.
present.
Yeah. I think the questioning too from the lawyers is different because
Yes.
I think sometimes from what I've seen, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a
Mhm.
professional, but just from my personal thought is that they ask probing questions so you can kind of like put yourself in a situation,
Correct.
even if that wasn't the situation.
Correct.
So yeah, that's another because my son, he was like, "Ma, I don't know what to say,"
Right.
and I'm like, "Yeah, that's when the frustration came. And too bad you can't
Right.
slap a lawyer."
Right.
So yeah.
It's funny. I was given I was doing a Know Your Rights presentation just last week,
Uh huh.
and my if I were to summarize my advice to people is to comply but never consent.
Right.
But I don't think people understand how that actually
Right.
works.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, if I'm pulled over by a police officer and they ask me to give them my ID, I gotta comply. I gotta give them my
Right.
ID.
Right.
But if they ask me, can I search your car?
Right.
I don't have to say yes.
Right.
If they're asking me, have I had anything to drink tonight? I don't have to answer that question.
Right.
But if they don't have a lawyer there to guide them through those questionings, then they will just say all these things
Right.
and incriminate themselves.
Right.
And it's so valuable to have that access to a lawyer.
Right.
I also just last week, me and a client of mine went to go speak with the DA.
Mm-hmm.
And before we began, the DA gave this introductory remarks. He was like, before we get started, um, I'm going to ask you questions.
Mm-hmm.
And if at any point you are unsure whether you should answer your question, you should turn to your lawyer, and your lawyer will tell you whether you should answer it or whether you can't answer it.
Mm-hmm.
Many people just don't have that lawyer there. And like having that kind of representation when you're pulled over can like make or break a whole case.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could. It could be the difference between you, giving a whole confession, the difference
Mm-hmm.
between you being searched unlawfully.
Right.
Having a lawyer at that inception could change everything.
Right.
From you being arrested
Mm-hmm.
to you surviving that encounter with the police
Exactly.
officer.
Exactly. Yep. That's my whole intention, with Live Lawyer app. Just those things because it's so many. I believe so many people go to jail for nothing when they
Right.
really could have just, if the police officer could have, well, like I said, they ask probing questions so
Mhm.
they can actually get you to say something so they can, move forward. Especially like, searching your car.
Right.
You need to search my car for if I'm getting a speeding ticket. Like,
Right.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I'm not gonna say what I want to say is because this is not my first, my son's first encounter with a police officer, but I have a little brother
Mhm.
who we once, we hired an attorney, and the
Mhm.
attorney went straight to plea deal. I'm like, plea deal? You got him on camera working,
Mhm.
and his fellow employees
Right.
were like, we'll go to court and say that he was there, so he didn't do it.
Right.
He was like, no, you should take him. I fired him,
Mhm.
got another one.
Mhm.
He asked the right questions.
Right.
They threw out the case. They didn't even come and let us come in the courtroom. They just handed the paper out the door.
Wow. Wow. I'm glad you said that story. I'm happy you had a good experience with your second lawyer.
Right.
But there are many people who believe that getting a paid lawyer will fix everything.
Right.
And it's nice to know that sometimes, they could take your money and they could waste your money. And just because they're a paid lawyer does not mean they're gonna do right by you and your family.
And I have one more, one
No,
more,
no,
one more,
share all the stories.
one more. I have one more with my other son. He was caught up with some kids, and they kept asking him whose Yankee Jacket is.
Mhm.
It is. Now, I know my son is 350 pounds playing
Mhm.
football. The
Mhm.
rest of the kids are skinny. They kept asking us about it. I said, go get the jacket.
Mm.
Go get the jacket. So he was like, what do you mean? If it doesn't fit, you must have quit. They threw that case out. Because I know that jacket was little, and my son didn't have a Yankee Jacket.
Right.
He 350 pounds. All the kids he hang with like 150 pounds.
Right,
So
right.
bring me the jacket. Stop asking him about the stupid jacket.
Right.
So I had that case thrown out.
Wow. Wow. Just by having that mindset to
Yeah, like stop
ask the right
asking me
question.
about this jacket. It was just aggravating me because I know that my son is 350 and they 150. Bring the jacket. If he can't fit it, what do you want us to do?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to how, let's say when the app is live, right?
Mm-hmm.
I work with many public defenders, many former public defenders, many people who could be a very valuable asset to the app.
Right.
How could lawyers, be a part of the lawyers that people can call when these things happen?
So first, what I want to do is I want to get something I can show those lawyers, like something I can. Here's the app. Here's what you need to do. I want to kind of come together and have like have a meeting with those lawyers and show what the app could do, so we can start to make it live.
Mhm.
So that's how they can become a part of it. I'm going to have some type of contract with the attorneys,
Mm-hmm.
and also contract with, extra customers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a separate contract, or either a way that a parent can come into the app,
Mm-hmm.
because I had some feedback. It was like, what, my child is like 15 and he has this. I don't want a lawyer talking to my child without me being present.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, so we'll set it up where when the app is activated, the lawyer comes on and you come on as a parent. So
Mm-hmm.
you have like a three-way,
Mm.
or sign the contract where the lawyer is able to just talk to your child either way.
Right.
So that type of feedback. So I want like the lawyers
Right.
to come on, and I want to meet with them first,
Right.
and then just to see if you got to see if their licenses. It's a
Yeah.
whole process. That's why I'm going to really need the funding, because
Right.
I can't do this all by myself. I'm not
Right.
legal. I don't know anything about that, so I will need folks to assist me in getting that part together.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know exactly what all went into you learning how to make the app
Hmm.
as efficient as possible.
Hmm.
So even hearing that you had feedback about
Right.
not wanting to have their son speaking with the lawyer without them being present.
Right.
What kind of things did you do to make sure that your app was as effective as possible in terms of like getting feedback, and who'd you speak to get an idea of what can make this app as best as possible?
I actually put out a survey because I'm like, what do you think about live lawyer? I even had one guy said to me, because at first I said it's going to ping your people in your contact list.
Hmm.
One guy was like, I don't want my boss to know I was pulled over. I
Right.
had a.
Yeah.
So that's when I said your selected contacts. So things like that,
Mm.
and I love feedback. Like, if there's
Hmm.
any way I can actually change it to make it more efficient,
Right.
or make it more user friendly, or I'm open,
Yeah.
because I just want it to work the best way it can.
If I could maybe even give some advice,
Right.
have you had a chance to like do like a feedback session with lawyers?
No, I didn't,
Okay.
because I didn't know that
Yeah.
many lawyers. I only knew two civil rights attorneys, and they are extremely busy.
Hmm.
So I did speak with them. I
Hmm.
haven't had a pool of lawyers that I could ask,
Hmm.
but I would love to do that.
Yeah, and I believe I could be, access to that for
Thank you.
sure.
Thank you.
I do want to say that I am very inspired by your story, and
Thank you.
I believe in the potential of your app.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say this just
Mm-hmm.
loosely.
Right.
If there's ways for me to be of assistance as you
Thank
move
you.
forward, even if that is
Thank you.
helping connect you to lawyers,
Right.
whether it's being one of the lawyers on the queue,
Thank you.
um, I believe in your story,
Thank you.
and I believe in the power of the kind of safety and the kind of lives that your app could actually
I really appreciate
protect
it.
and
I
provide
hope so.
for
I
real.
hope so. I hope so. I hope so.
100%.
Thank you.
Um, is there anything about the app that you haven't shared yet, or anything that you uh want the people know that you haven't that I haven't asked?
No, it's just that I'm trying to get the funding. I'm trying to get the development of the app done.
Okay.
That's my biggest part, because once I get like something to show,
Mm-hmm.
I can go to investors and say, "Here we go." I can go
Mm-hmm.
to a lawyer and say, "Can you test this for me?"
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. I just have to get the development, and I thank God that I met up with the Code and Coffee people of Newark, and I also a Ken
Mm-hmm.
from Newark Invest.
Mm-hmm.
So they're putting me together, trying to put me together with NJIT
Mm-hmm.
to actually get the app completed,
Mm-hmm.
so that way I can move forward.
Got you. Okay. You mentioned earlier that if people want to help, they can sign up on your email list.
Right.
Is that it? Let's say you're thousands of people are watching this episode,
Right.
if you could invite the kind of help and assistance that you need to take this app to the next level, to get this app live,
Uh-huh.
what's the kind of assistance that you are seeking?
Well, first of all, I would need somebody to help manage the making of the app, because I have no clue about making apps.
Right.
And also, I would need some type of like legal assistance, because I don't know anything about law. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what works, what's supposed to work, how
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to go. I don't need know the rules and
Mm-hmm.
regulations.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would also need people to test it. I would need lawyers to test it, and I would also need customers to test the app
Mm-hmm.
once it's to a space where it could be tested.
Mm-hmm. Got you. So if you're listening to this and you are an engineer, you are a coder, you have experience with creating apps, and this is something that seems to be of interest to you, please reach out to Paulina.
Yes.
If you are a lawyer, a criminal defense lawyer, civil rights lawyer, and you know about people's rights and know about police interactions, and you believe you could be of use, reach out to Paulina. If you are just a concerned citizen
Hmm.
and you uh, interact with apps on a daily basis, and you want to assist in making sure this app is as user friendly and as
Feedback.
effective as possible, reach out to Paulina.
Thank
It's
you.
not like anybody who can help in any kind of way could be of
Right.
use to you.
Yes, anybody who can help in any kind of way could be a use to me. You can send me an email at info@livelawyer.app.com,
Right.
and I'll answer my emails and I'll get back to you because I do have a lot of emails coming right
Mhm.
now. But yeah, I'll get back to you, and I would love to work with anybody. And I'm good. I love feedback because that's the only way I learn,
Yeah.
and that's the only way we can make the product better.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Paulina. We end every episode asking our guests to just share one piece of advice or wisdom you could. Um, feel free to think about it.
Hmm.
And yeah, I want to know what's something you want to share. It can be about the app. It could be about being a mother of someone who has had a child murdered. It could be about anything. You can leave the people with one piece of wisdom. What would it be?
Well, my one piece of wisdom would be to I've learned it took me some time to
Mm-hmm.
remain calm in situations
Mm-hmm.
because when you're hype or overreactive, you make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
You're not thinking clearly, and then sometimes you give yourself more worry than what's needed.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes when in my younger days, I used to overreact to everything, and now I'm just like so calm and it's peaceful. I sleep well at night.
Right.
So if you can have a situation, no matter what it is, if you can just remain calm and think it through,
Mm-hmm.
I think that it would be better for you. It'll be
Yeah.
more peaceful
Right.
for you.
Yeah. And I think my advice would be I was talking to my girlfriend about this the other day,
Hmm.
and we were talking about this in the context of preaching,
Hmm.
and I was telling her how you know I realized how difficult it must be to be a preacher,
Hmm.
and what I meant by that is like we have preachers who preach every Sunday,
Right.
but between Sunday is Monday through Saturday,
Right.
and they're humans, they're regular human
Right.
beings, and they go through life.
Right.
And they go through life carrying things. So they
Right.
go through life carrying Monday,
Hmm.
carrying Tuesday,
Hmm.
carrying Wednesday, all the way through Saturday, and that
Hmm.
they've had a whole week of things that they've carried.
Right.
And those things could be anywhere from a fight with their wife,
Right.
could be anywhere from being cursed at by somebody on a subway.
Right.
It could be feeling like you failed at your job, and
Right.
all those things you're
Right.
carrying, and then they get on the pulpit, and we expect them to preach
Right.
through all of that.
Right.
So I say that to say my advice, my game that I would say would be two things. Number one, recognize that everybody is carrying something,
Right.
whether it's something throughout the week,
Hmm.
whether it's the loss of a son that you're going to be carrying for the rest of your life.
Right.
Everybody is carrying something.
Right.
And then the second thing I would say is, as a human,
Hmm.
take the time to know it, to learn what that person's carrying.
Right.
Just as a basic human connection type thing.
Right.
if I if I would have seen you on the street, I
Hmm.
probably would have said hi to you,
Hmm.
and we never would have had this in depth conversation.
Right.
Um, but now I just have so much profound, respect for you and
Thank
all
you.
of you
I
because I
appreciate it.
know what you've been through, even though
Appreciate
I
it.
only know a fraction of it.
Right.
So yeah, everyone's carrying something, and as a human, everybody should want to get to know what that person's carrying.
Right.
Um, Paulina, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
I can't wait for the app to be live so
Thank
we can
you.
invite you back on the
Thank
podcast
you.
and make that announcement official.
Thank you.
And I invite everyone who has tuned in and watched this episode today, if there is any way that they could be of assistance to making this app take that next step,
Right.
to do so. And I will make sure I share this with my network, all my friends, my family,
Thank
and
you.
I really believe that your app, will happen
Right.
and really will end up saving lives.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I really, really appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Of course, of course. Well, we have come to the end of another episode of the Brothers in Law podcast. Please tune in. We have more episodes coming up soon. And yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Of course. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.